Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Charlene. I am the owner of NeuroSense, although that's to be changing very soon because I am rebranding. However, that's a topic for another video. And if you're returning, welcome back. So as you can tell by the title, this is the 5th episode of our wax melt making for beginners series, and today we are talking all about CLP. So let's get into it. So today's video is crucial for anyone who is selling homemade candles or reed diffuser or home fragrance products. We're deep diving into CLP. We're doing it, guys. We're having this conversation. If you do make candles or reed diffusers, it's really important that you know this information, not only to protect yourself and your business, but also to protect the customer. So what exactly is a CLP? So CLP stands for Classification, Labelling and Packaging, and it's a regulation designed to make sure hazardous substances are labelled correctly across the EU. So this law officially kicked in back in June 2015. Not only does this cover candles or wax melts or reed diffusers, it covers any fragrance product you'd use at home. So air fresheners, reed diffusers as I mentioned before, and even cleaning products. So although Brexit has taken place, the UK still follows the original CLP rule, but here's the catch. Any updates that may take place in the future may not apply to the UK and the EU. For example, the EU recently introduced UFIs or UFI codes, which are special codes that are used to track hazardous substances. But at the moment, they're not required in England, but they are required in the rest of the EU and Northern Ireland. So who needs to follow the CLP rules? So if you are selling candles or other home fragrance products which have potentially hazardous chemicals in them, CLP regulations apply to you. This means if you're making small batches for family and friends and local markets, or if you are selling loads out of a factory, you are responsible for ensuring that your products are labelled correctly and safely. So what needs to go on your CLP label? To be compliant, there are a few key things you need to include. Firstly, your label has to include your business name, your full address and phone number. This is important so that customers know how to reach you if they have any questions or concerns. Next, you need to include the name of your product, and this is also known as the product identifier. For instance, if your candle is called Lavender Fields, make sure that's clearly labelled. I also go ahead and use a batch number. So for each product that I make, it has a batch number that has a direct correlation with the fragrance oil bottle that I used for that product. So it has a traceability from consumer to myself as the business owner, right back to where I sourced the fragrance oil from. Then there are obviously hazard pictograms. So those are those sort of small diamond-shaped images that let people know if there's a potential risk, like flammability or skin irritation. For this, you will need to check your safety data sheets, which is provided by your fragrance supplier. And this will tell you which ones apply to that particular fragrance. You'll also need a signal word such as warning or danger. And while warning is for lower risks, danger signifies something more serious. And again, this also comes from your safety data sheets. Next, you need hazard statements to identify specific risks, such as may cause an allergic skin reaction. And then you're going to need precautionary statements, which on the other hand guide people on how to handle your product safely, such as avoid release into the environment or wear protective gloves, or how to dispose of safely. Don't forget your allergen info. If your fragrance oil contains allergens at 0.1% or more, you'll need to list them. This is especially important for customers who may have sensitivities. Lastly, the net weight of the product needs to be listed. especially for larger items over 125 grams. For smaller products, you may have a bit of wiggle room, but the weight must be stated somewhere on the packaging. And all the information you need for your CLP label can be found in the safety data sheets, or SDS, that your fragrance supplier provides. These documents include details on hazards, precautions, and more. Some companies provide SDSs for all of their fragrance oils, and even better, some companies have a CLP design tool that simplifies the process of creating compliant labels. But we'll have a look at that a bit later on. So what do you do if your product is too small to have a CLP label on? So if your candle or wax melt is too small to attach a label, you can omit some of the details on the product itself, as long as the information is on the outer packaging or a tag. So where do you actually put the CLP label? So according to the CLP legislation, the label should be fixed to the surface of your product packaging. Most candle makers choose to place it on the bottom of the container, or if you have a box, you can place it on the outer packaging. Another option is to tie a tag around your product or a label that is visible at the point of sale. And this is the most important thing. Your CLP label needs to be visible at the point of sale. This is to allow the customer to make an informed decision as to whether your products are safe enough for them to buy. So before we wrap this up, let's talk about IFRA or IFRA. So IFRA stands for International Fragrance Association, and it's a set of standards that tells us how safe a fragrance is to use in consumer products, like candles or diffusers. They base their guidelines on scientific research and industry expertise to ensure products are safe for people to enjoy. But CLP labelling looks at fragrances in a different way. Their focus is mainly on classifying and labelling chemicals based on their potential hazards, like skin irritation or environmental impact, without considering how they'll actually be used in a product. This is why CLP might label something as hazardous, even though IFRA says it's safe to use at certain levels. Basically, IFRA is industry focused while CLP is regulatory. So basically, your IFRA is also found on the website where you buy your wax melts from, and it has 12 categories, and it's split products where fragrance oil can be used into these 12 categories. So for instance, candles and wax melts would fall under category 12, something like reed diffusers will fall under category 10A, and it will give you a percentage as to how safe it would be to use that fragrance oil in a product within that category. But by understanding the difference in the IFRA guidelines and the CLP, it will enable you to be better equipped to make sure that your product is not only safe but fully compliant. So it's all about finding that balance between making something beautiful but also making sure that it's safe for everyone to use. Okay, so let's try and get into making our own CLP label. So today we're going to be using the Candle Shack CLP design tool. So if you go ahead and just click on any fragrance and scroll down to the bottom of that page, you should then be able to see the CLP design tool. And if you click on that, it should open up the design page for you. Firstly, can I just apologise because it's so difficult to see, but this is the only way I could record it for you. Anyway, you're going to start by choosing from the drop down list the scent that you would like to use, and then you're going to decide whether it's 10%, 8% or 6%, and you choose the percentage of fragrance oil you have used in your product. And as you can see, it has now put in your pictogram some allergy information and what your product contains. So just go ahead and fill out the rest of the information, such as the grams or mils, probably grams. You can change the shape to either a square or you can keep it as a circle. You also need to put your business address, which you use these boxes to do so. And then if you need some extra information, such as the little photos at the bottom, you can choose to add these as well. You can choose to completely delete the UFI code. If you just go ahead and delete the digits that are in the UFI box, then that should completely disappear off the label for you. And they also have the option to add a batch number, which is really good. So go ahead and add your batch number here. I forgot to mention that you can change the name of your product, so your product name doesn't necessarily have to stay the same as the one on the website. So go ahead and do that, and then you can change the font size, so that's what I'm doing here. And then you can either get rid of the border or you can keep the border in place. So here I've just pulled up the safety data sheet so we can have a look at the information on the safety data sheet and how and where it needs to go on the label. So here, as highlighted, we have our signal word, which is warning, and then we have our hazard statements. Then we have what our product contains. And then we've got our precautionary statements and how to dispose of correctly. Just below that, we also have our hazard pictograms. And then you have some other information recorded on your safety data sheets, and I guess this is information that you'd need to provide should your customer have an allergic reaction, and this information needs to be passed on to the medical professionals. And finally, just a little hack, if you ever get confused about your CLP label, you should be able to buy a wax melt sample from your fragrance oil supplier, and you can use that to guide you. And that's the lowdown on CLP and IFRA, guys. Not only will you be keeping your customer safe, but you'll also be protecting your business. If this video has helped clear things up, hopefully I haven't confused anyone too much, then please do like and subscribe so I can continue to share this information with you. And if you have any more questions or queries relating to the guidelines, then please do not hesitate to comment down below. Thanks again for watching. Take care. Bye.